She can't use that money anymore. My daughter-in-law laughed at the table. The next morning, I left all $13.20 to her brother's wife, the only one who ever checked on me. It was raining the night I realized my life had an expiration date. Not written by God, but by my own blood. The wind pushed softly against the windows, the kind of rain that doesn't pour but lingers, like it knows something you don't. I was lying in my room, lights off, blanket up to my chin, pretending to be asleep. At my age, stillness is your only weapon, and that night it gave me everything. They were in the kitchen, my son Thomas and his wife Clarissa. I heard the fridge door open, glasses clinking. Then came the words. Simple, soft, fatal. She can't use that money anymore. Clarissa's voice, calm, confident, cruel. I held my breath. My fingers curled around the edge of the blanket, heart thudding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Thomas didn't respond immediately. Then his voice low and hesitant. Are you sure about this? Clarissa clicked her tongue. Thomas, her heart's failing, the cancer's back. She barely eats, she sleeps 16 hours a day. What exactly is she using that retirement account for? Her grave? A pause. Then she added, almost as a joke, if she dies at home, we cremate fast. No autopsy. Clean. My mouth went dry. The woman I once called daughter-in-law, who I fed, defended, and housed, was planning my death like a spreadsheet. No tears, no guilt, just logistics. The policy is in my name, she continued. $750,000 tax-free. We just need her to sign the hospice waiver. Once she does, it's over. Quick and clean. Thomas exhaled. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no. I stayed frozen in bed for what felt like an hour after they left the kitchen. Only when I was sure they had gone to bed did I sit up and place both feet on the floor. The rain had stopped. All I could hear was the tick of the hallway clock. I opened my drawer and pulled out an old necklace box. Inside was a silver locket. My late husband gave it to me 20 years ago. He had a voice recorder installed in it as a joke, he always said. If I die first, record the gossip for me. Tonight, he got his wish. I clicked the hidden button and replayed the recording. Every word, every syllable. I copied the file to my old laptop, saved it twice. My hands shook as I closed the lid. I sat in silence, staring into the dark. I know everyone has their reasons for hating others, but I never expected that my children could be so cruel and hateful towards me. What did I do wrong? I'm just a normal mother. Is everything I do wrong? God, please answer me. But God was quiet, maybe because he already gave me ears to hear, and now he was waiting to see if I had the will to fight. The next morning, Clarissa brought me tea. Chamomile with honey. My favorite. Or at least, it used to be. Sleep well, Mom? She asked, her voice warm, fake, polished. Better, I said, smiling. Thank you, dear. She smiled back. She had perfect teeth, like a wolf wearing pearls. I waited until she left the room, then poured the tea into the ficus plant in the corner. I didn't die that day, or the next, but something inside me did. The belief that family protects you, that blood is thicker than betrayal. That illusion was gone, and what replaced it was something colder, smarter, patient. Clarissa wanted me to die quietly, so I decided to live loudly, in silence. 2 weeks after that night, the night I heard my own son and his wife whisper about my death like it was a spreadsheet item, I went in for a checkup. The kind of appointment I used to go to alone, but now Clarissa insisted on driving me. For your safety, she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She didn't come inside, of course, just dropped me at the door and reminded me to mention any new symptoms, like she was taking her car to a mechanic. I sat in the sterile white room, the air so cold it bit through my sleeves, and waited. The nurse was kind. She asked about my sleep, my appetite, my energy levels. I told her what I could. Some of it was true, some of it I hadn't even told myself yet. Then the doctor came in with my chart. He didn't look up right away. I knew what that meant. The cancer's returned, he said finally. We caught it early, but it's aggressive. We'll need to start treatment soon if you want to fight this. That word, if, hung in the room like smoke. I nodded, quietly. I didn't cry. I didn't ask how long. I'd had cancer before. I knew the dance. I also knew this time It wouldn't be just me against the disease. It would be me against the people under my roof. When I got back in the car, Clarissa was humming along to the radio. Country music, of all things. She didn't ask about the diagnosis, just looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, "You hungry?" "No," I whispered. "Good," she said. "I'm making soup tonight." When we got home, I lingered in the doorway for a moment. I stared at the family photos on the wall. My wedding day, Thomas as a baby. Christmas 3 years ago, the last one where everyone pretended to care. Clarissa moved past me, pulling off her gloves. "Go rest," she said. "You look tired." Later that evening, I sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling, and whispered, "Clarissa." She turned, stirring her pot on the stove. "The cancer. It's back." She paused, just for a second, her back to me. I kept going, my voice softer than a breath. "Would you help me? Just help me get treatment. I don't have anyone else." She turned slowly, ladle still in her hand. Her lips curled into a smile, not warm, not cruel, controlled. "If you've got cancer," she said, walking toward me, "maybe it's time to lie down with the worms." I blinked. I thought I'd misheard, but she leaned in close, too close, and said it again, slower. "Crawl down into the grave with the maggots." I froze. The soup bubbled behind her like something alive. She pulled a chair out beside me and sat, legs crossed, ladle resting in her lap. "You gave your life to this family. You sacrificed, you worked, you lived frugally. And for what? For us, right?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. She nodded to herself. "Well, congratulations. You made it. Everything's in place, your savings, your insurance, your retirement account, all properly transferred. Your value, Mom, is complete." "Clarissa," I whispered. She held up a hand. "No, just listen." Her voice was calm, like she was reading a bedtime story. "You think we're monsters, but we're just practical. You're not an investment anymore. You're a conclusion, and I am not spending $80,000, 0 cents on chemo for a dying woman who can't walk up the stairs." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "And you know what?" she added with a small, amused tilt of her head. "You already signed the DNR paperwork last year, remember? That little stack of routine documents I had you go through when your arthritis was bad?" My heart twisted. She stood, smoothed her blouse, and went back to the stove. "You don't need to worry about a thing, Mom. Just eat, sleep, and don't make it dramatic. No one likes a long goodbye." I sat at the table long after she left the kitchen, my hands folded, my mouth dry. I stared at the soup, smelled the rosemary and garlic, remembered how I used to make it for Thomas when he was sick. Now it was being made for me, by a woman who hoped it would be my last meal. I went to my room and shut the door. I didn't pray that night. I planned. And as I lay in bed, eyes wide open in the dark, I began to replay every moment from the last 2 years. I remembered the day Clarissa insisted I sign a stack of routine forms. She smiled sweetly while I scribbled my name without reading. One was a power of attorney, another quietly listed her as the beneficiary on my insurance. I never questioned it, just another errand. But now I knew. She had been setting the table for my disappearance long before the cancer came back. The push for a joint account, the laughing comment last Christmas. "You're lucky we keep you around. You're like a walking inheritance." I laughed too. Now I understood what she meant. The next morning, Clarissa was all smiles again, brought me coffee in bed, light roast, just the way I like it. She even tucked a napkin into my collar and called me Queen Eleanor. "Big day," she chirped, "the first day of the rest of your rest." I didn't touch the coffee, just smiled, because I knew they weren't waiting for cancer to kill me. They were speeding it up. A week after Clarissa told me I was worth more dead than alive, she changed. Not her heart, her behavior. Suddenly she became sweet, attentive, helpful, like she had remembered she was playing a part in a play and stepped back into character. She started making me breakfast. Warm, seasoned, balanced. "Soft foods for your digestion," she'd say with a smile. "Soups, smoothies, porridge with honey." She brought me coffee, not too hot, tea with lemon at exactly 3:00 p.m., nightly milk with nutmeg for sleep. She began calling me Mom again. I knew the act too well. I used to play the same one when I was married to a man who beat me with silence and control. I knew what poison looked like when it wore pearls, and still, I pretended not to notice. "Thank you, sweetheart," I'd whisper, sipping just enough to avoid suspicion, pouring the rest into the orchid pot when she left the room. But even that wasn't enough. Within days, my body turned against me. I was dizzy, my chest thudded in strange rhythms. My hands trembled constantly. I couldn't keep food down. My bowels emptied without warning. At one point I fainted while folding laundry. I woke up on the floor with Clarissa staring down at me. "Oh, Mom," she said, kneeling beside me with a damp cloth. "It's the stress. You just need to rest." That night I called my doctor. He ran tests the next day. "There's something odd in your results," he said, frowning. "You're dehydrated, showing signs of electrolyte imbalance, and your heart is under unusual strain. You haven't changed your medications?" "No," I said. "Nothing new from the pharmacy." He looked unconvinced. "It may be a food or supplement interaction, or something in the home environment." "Could it be deliberate?" I asked, almost too quietly. His eyes flickered. "Do you feel safe where you live, Mrs. Hathaway?" I didn't answer. Instead, I went home and called Denise, my old neighbor's daughter, who now worked as a pharmacy tech. I asked her if she could analyze a few items for me. No questions asked, just yes or no. She said yes. The next morning, Clarissa made me chamomile tea. She sprinkled cinnamon on top, like I used to for Thomas when he had a cold. I poured it into a sterile plastic vial when she left and labeled it Tuesday tea, 8 a.m. That evening, I hid the soup she brought me. Lentils and leeks. I sealed it too. Tuesday soup, 6 p.m. By the end of the week, I had 6 samples. Tea, soup, milk, yogurt parfait, smoothie, and an almond cookie. I had eaten none of them. On Saturday morning, I handed the bag of samples to Denise's husband in the church parking lot, tucked inside a box of old hymnals. He nodded once and left without a word. 3 days later, Denise called me. "Eleanor," she said, "I don't know who's cooking for you, but stop eating it." "What did you find?" "High doses of furosemide in 3 of the samples. That's a loop diuretic. It can cause dehydration, heart failure, confusion, and even death if used improperly. There's also zolpidem in the milk. That's a strong sedative. Prescription only." I closed my eyes. "She's trying to kill me slowly," I whispered. Denise didn't reply. She didn't have to. That night, I pulled out the 2 small security gadgets Thomas had given me last Christmas as a joke. One was a camera built into a fake phone charger, the other a pair of smart glasses with a hidden lens. "You'll never use these," he'd laughed. He was right about one thing. Until now, I placed the charger camera in the kitchen outlet, angled toward the prep counter. I wore the glasses each time I sat at the table, smiling like I didn't know I was being poisoned. And then, I caught her. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet cruelty in action. Clarissa humming while she crushed a white pill between 2 spoons, pouring it into tea, stirring slowly, rinsing the spoon exactly 6 seconds, drying it with the same towel she used to wipe the sink, humming again. No hesitation, no second thoughts, like it was just another chore. The footage on my phone was crystal clear. I recorded 4 separate days. Different pills, same ritual, same soft smile. On the 4th day, she even said under her breath, "Almost there, you old bitch." I didn't flinch. I smiled. She thought she was playing me like a fiddle, but I was the one writing the final note. Not all women hurt each other. Some simply remember. There was one woman, one light in all this ugliness who had no reason to help me. No obligation, no bloodline, just kindness. Her name was Lila. Lila was the ex-wife of Clarissa's older brother Henry, the one everyone in their family pretended never existed once they split. That barren mule, Clarissa once called her, not knowing I was standing nearby. 10 years of marriage and not even a miscarriage. Just a useless hole. I said nothing back then, just tucked it away. Another cruel sentence from a woman who wore cruelty like perfume, subtle, but lingering. But I remembered, because Lila was the only person who ever came to see me after my first chemo. Not Thomas, not Clarissa, not a single friend from the church social. Just her. She showed up with a Tupperware of homemade chicken congee, said it was an old family recipe. Sat at my bedside in the hospital and brushed my hair out of my face like I was her own mother. We barely knew each other, but that didn't matter. I asked her why she came. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Who?" "Myself. The version of me no one wanted anymore." After that, she came by every 2 weeks, always brought food. Never stayed too long, just enough to let me know I wasn't forgotten. Clarissa hated it. One day I heard her snap in the hallway. "Why are you even here, Lila? You don't belong to this family anymore. You can't have kids. You've got no roots here. Go back to your sad little life and stay out of mine." I thought Lila would cry, but she smiled. "I don't need to have a child to be human. But you, I hope you never become a mother. You'd rot everything you touch." Clarissa slammed the door. That night I cried, not for myself, but for Lila. For the way the world spits out women who can't produce what it wants. Babies, profit, silence. And I thought, she was thrown out for not giving life. And me, I'm being thrown out for living too long. Clarissa didn't just want me gone, she wanted me erased. But Lila, she remembered me. Even now, 2 years after that hospital visit, she still sent postcards. Once every few months, no return address. Just soft little messages in curling blue ink. "Thinking of you, E. Hope you're still stubborn. Alive is better than pretty." They meant more than anyone knew. When I started to piece together my escape, my revenge, my justice, Lila came to mind. Not because I wanted to involve her, I never wanted to drag her into this storm, but because I remembered something she once told me. "If you ever need a friend, I'm not hard to find. I just don't wait around for invitations anymore." So I reached out. Carefully, quietly. I mailed a single letter. No details, just a question. "Do you still believe people like us can win?" 3 weeks later, a package came. Inside was a burner phone, a USB drive, and a note. "Yes, let me help." I held that little phone like it was a lifeline. And maybe it was, because no matter how carefully I planned, no matter how many videos I recorded or samples I collected, there was always the risk that no one would believe me. But with Lila, I had someone who'd already believed me when I had nothing to offer. Someone who saw the slow death that women like us face every day, not from disease but from invisibility. And suddenly, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was fighting. You learn a lot when you pretend to be dumb. Clarissa liked to think she was the smartest one in the room. That was her mistake. Her arrogance made her reckless, so I gave her the performance of a lifetime. I started forgetting things, little things at first. Names, the date, what I had for breakfast. She lapped it up like cream. "Oh, Mom, slipping," she told Thomas one morning, loud enough for me to hear through the vent. "Soon we won't need hospice, just a mattress cover and a shovel." She laughed. I smiled in my room. Every day she thought I was getting closer to the edge. I was getting sharper, more precise. I used the burner phone Lila gave me to record hours of new audio. Clarissa on the phone saying, "Increase her meds, just one night and we'll be free." Another time whispering to Thomas, "Do you know how long it takes for a body to stop twitching after the heart goes?" But it wasn't enough to catch them. I needed to beat them. And that meant taking back what they were trying to steal. So I called my old lawyer, Saul. He hadn't seen me in 5 years, thought I was dead. "You're not dying, are you?" he asked over the phone. "Not before I raise some hell," I said. He chuckled. "Now that's the Eleanor I remember." We met at his office after hours. I wore a shawl and sunglasses, like I was sneaking into a secret war room. "Tell me everything," he said. I did. Every word, every whisper, every pill, every recording. And when I was done, I placed a small black box on his desk. "What's this?" "My final play," I said. "A video will." We filmed it that night. No scripts, no edits. Just me, clear-eyed, deliberate, calm. I sat in front of the camera and said, "My name is Eleanor Ruth Hathaway. I am of sound mind and body. I am making this will of my own free will with no pressure or coercion. Everything I own, every cent of it, my house, my stocks, my savings, my retirement, my late husband's shares, $13,200,000, 0 cents in total. I leave to one person, Lila Jacobs. I looked straight into the lens. She is not family by blood, but she is family by care. The only person who ever checked on me when I was sick, the only one who didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything, and yet gave everything. I took a breath. She has agreed to use the assets to create a foundation that protects the elderly from abuse, financial, emotional, medical. The principal will never be touched. Only the interest will fund services, legal help, and shelter for victims like me. Then I leaned forward. To anyone who tries to contest this, know this. I have evidence. Audio, video, signatures, lab reports. If you challenge this will, everything goes public. Saul notarized it, filed it, locked it away. And I went home, smiled at Clarissa, and asked if it was Wednesday. She laughed. No, Mom, it's Friday. Oh, I said sweetly, silly me. I began asking for warm milk every night. She brought it just like before, still drugged, still dangerous, but I pretended to drink it. Each morning, I forgot that she had. She started talking more openly, saying things she never would have risked before. She's circling the drain, I heard her tell Thomas. I upped the dose last night, 1 more week, tops. He asked her if it was safe. I don't care, she snapped. We've waited long enough. If she dies on the toilet, we cremate and call it a stroke. No one will check. Who cares about a senile old woman? I recorded it all. Lila helped me back it up in 4 places. 2 USBs, 1 cloud folder, 1 safety deposit box. Every day I pretended to get weaker. Every day Clarissa got more bold. And every night I sat in my room, surrounded by folders, files, and quiet rage, building a case not just to win, but to bury them, not in soil. In truth, Mom, Clarissa said one morning, too cheerfully, you need a break. I raised an eyebrow. Spoon paused in my cold oatmeal. A break? A weekend away, just you and nature, she smiled. No stress, no noise. It's a top-tier detox resort. Very exclusive. The word detox clanged in my head like a warning bell, but I tilted my head and asked, Isn't that expensive? She waved it off. My friend Rachel manages it. Staff discount. It's the least we could do. I smiled, nodded, and said thank you, because at this point, I already knew this wasn't a gift. It was a setup. I told Lila the moment I got the offer. We met at the grocery store, pretending to browse tea bags. I slipped her the address. She gave me a new micro switch card and said just one thing. If anything feels off, press the side button on your glasses twice. It'll upload everything to the police in real time. The resort was nestled in the woods 2 hours outside the city. Remote, private, isolated. Perfect for dying unnoticed. Clarissa drove me herself, hummed along to soft jazz, said things like, It's so peaceful out here, and they have amazing herbal teas, you'll love it. I said nothing, just nodded occasionally. My hand rested on the small silver necklace with the hidden mic I now wore at all times. When we arrived, Rachel met us at the gate. Younger than I expected, glossy hair, sharp eyes, too polished for the forest. She smiled, hugged Clarissa, then turned to me with that fake warmth I've come to expect from people who think you won't live through the weekend. Welcome, Mrs. Hathaway. We're honored to host you. My room was beautiful, too beautiful. White linens, candles, no locks on the door. The first warning came at breakfast the next morning. Clarissa brought me a cup of coffee. From their in-house beans, she said, with cinnamon, your favorite. I sniffed it. It smelled off, too sweet, too earthy. I lifted the cup, smiled and said, Mim. Then, while pretending to dab my lips with a napkin, I slowly poured the coffee into a hand towel on my lap. Later, I sealed the soak towel in a plastic zip bag and tucked it under my pillow. I would give it to the officer Lila promised would be on standby. At lunch, I wore the smart glasses. I made sure they were angled right. I sat by the window as Clarissa whispered to Rachel in the corner of the room. The audio was faint, but the mic caught everything. She's barely eating, Clarissa said. The sedative in the coffee should keep her down all day. Rachel asked, Are you sure about tonight? Clarissa smirked. Tonight's the night. She won't wake up. I pressed the side button twice. Upload triggered. I ate only the crackers that came in a sealed packet. Drank bottled water I opened myself, and I waited. Night fell. Clarissa brought a tray to my room. Chamomile, she said, for a good night's sleep. I took it, set it down, watched her leave, then poured it down the toilet. Midnight came. I lay in bed, eyes open, fully dressed. At 12:43 a.m., the door creaked open. I stayed still. Clarissa crept in. She tiptoed to the nightstand, pulled a vial from her robe, uncapped it, reached for my tea. She stopped, realizing the cup was empty. I heard her whisper, "Damn." She backed out, quiet as smoke. I waited 10 minutes, then sat up and texted Leela one word, "Now." 10 minutes later, red and blue lights lit up the cabin walls. Rachel screamed, Clarissa swore, and I just sat there in bed, warm in my robe, holding my cold cup of untouched poison. They thought they had won. Clarissa showed up at Saul's office in full designer armor, heels, red lipstick, a bag that cost more than my first car. Thomas followed behind her like a ghost, eyes dim, lips tight. He hadn't said a real word to me in months. They believed I was dead, and in their minds, death equaled inheritance. "You said this wouldn't take long," Clarissa said to Saul, folding her arms. "Let's get to the distribution part." Saul didn't look up, just tapped a folder on the table. "Before we proceed, there's a video Mrs. Hathaway requested be played in the event of her passing." Clarissa rolled her eyes. "Fine, if it's some sentimental—" The screen flickered to life, and there I was, alive, clear-eyed, calm. My voice echoed through the room. "My name is Eleanor Ruth Hathaway. I am of sound mind and body. I am making this statement voluntarily. This is my final will and testament." Clarissa's jaw dropped. Thomas blinked rapidly. "I am aware of the attempts made on my life," I continued on screen. "The poison, the manipulation, the falsified medical reports, the fabricated dementia." Clarissa stood up. "What the hell is this?" Saul held up a hand. "Sit down." "On screen?" I smiled. "I've recorded everything. I've documented every word, every whisper, every drug slipped into my tea." Then came the sentence that froze the air. "I've heard it all, and I'm still alive." Clarissa gasped. Thomas whispered, "Oh, my God." "I leave my estate, every cent of it, to Lila Jacobs, the only person who checked on me when I was sick, the only soul who didn't treat me like a corpse waiting to be buried." Clarissa lunged forward, slamming her hand on the table. "She's lying. She's old. She's confused." Saul calmly clicked the next file. A recording began to play over the speakers. "She can't use that money anymore," Clarissa's voice hissed. "Just cremate and claim. No autopsy. No fuss." Another clip. "Up the dose. One more night. That's all it takes." Another. "She's senile. It's just paperwork now. Her value's complete." Thomas put his head in his hands. Clarissa turned white. Saul nodded slowly. "This audio is authenticated, verified, watermarked and backed up. You may leave with your purse, Mrs. Hathaway. That's all you're entitled to." Outside, the world already knew. By the time they stepped into the hallway, the first wave of headlines hit. Daughter-in-law's murder plot caught on tape. Elder abuse and a $13.20 Will, the widow who outsmarted them all. Justice served by Grandma's glasses. The news stations ran it in a loop. My voice, my face. The silent revenge of a woman who refused to die quietly. Public outrage boiled. People lit up the networks demanding charges, reform, oversight. Advocacy groups reached out to Lila, praising her for the foundation we had formed in my name. But the best moment? That night, live on national television, a news anchor played my final words from the video will. I was invisible in my own home. But the truth has a volume no one can silence. I chose kindness over blood. And in the end, I did not lose a family. I found one. It has been months since the world so graciously decided I was dead. I watch from the quiet instead of interviews or faces on the screen. There are only stories made of words. I have no presence in the press, no cameras, no curiosity. I exist now as a whisper, as a memory someone paused to study. And that, I believe, is the most satisfying revenge. Lila, my unexpected ally, my chosen kin, held the opening ceremony for the Eleanor Grace Foundation 6 weeks ago. She stood before a crowd of reporters and supporters, her cheeks wet with tears she refused to wipe away. The sign behind her read elegantly, Eleanor Grace Foundation. Underneath, in smaller type, legal and psychological aid for the elderly who've been abused. The Board of Trustees took their seats. The guests clapped, but the applause, though heartfelt, never reached me. I was not there. I sit in a small house by the lake, 2 towns over, drinking herbal tea and feeling the sun warm my back through the window. Lila would later tell me the foundation's lawyer declared it legally ironclad, that principal funds, $13,200,000 0 cents as outlined, would remain untouched. Only the interest would ever be used, and only for elderly people needing protection, legal aid, shelter, or someone to speak for them when they had no voice left. It was more than an archive of my survival. It was life repaid. Meanwhile, Clarissa was indicted, the charge, attempted murder of an elderly person. Her bail conditions included a 5-year injunction, no contact with anyone over 60. She lost every contact, every friend who once called her charming. Her name became a cautionary tale. Job offers evaporated. She moved into a cheap apartment, far from the neighborhoods where she was once admired for hosting holiday parties. Photos of her harsh eyes against bland walls circulated online. People added comments like, "She promised to care for her mother-in-law. Now she laughs about cremating her for inheritance." That kind of venom never faded. Thomas suffered too. Even if he didn't pull a pill or close the blinds, he was complicit by silence, and that was enough. His job evaporated after a background check revealed the audio. He lost custody of his son. The courts determined that a man who allows the possible murder of his mother for money cannot be trusted with a child's safety. The boy went to live with his aunt in another state. Thomas now works odd jobs, none with pensions, none promising more than a few months of security. Their neighbors changed their locks, picketed their homes. Social media was a continent of scorn. They pretended to love her, a viral video caption read, then waited for her to die so they could live. No church would allow Clarissa to attend. Tomas was asked to leave his sports team. Their house, once immaculate, now sits empty as they try to sell it. Listing photos show curtains torn, a coffee stain on the carpet, furniture gathering dust. The price keeps dropping. I never watch the news, but I hear about these things through Lila's texts. A date here, a headline there, a quiet update not meant to humiliate, but to prove justice can come without fanfare. I don't want a spotlight. I just want peace. I sent one final statement to the press. Not a video, not a TV appearance, just a recorded soundbite, played on local and national news, once. They tried to kill me quietly. I left that silence behind for the whole world to hear. After that, I asked no one to look for me. The cameras stayed away. The world moved on. And tonight, I sit in my chair by the window. The moonlight turns the water silver. A candle flickers, casting old shadows across the room. I have no regrets. Not for surviving, not for listening, not for planning. I only regret that the weight of my silence had to be so heavy before it had meaning. Outside, I hear doors closing, dogs barking, the hush of lives untouched by scandal. Inside, I rest, because I learned long ago that true power is not in shouting louder than your enemy. True power is in surviving them. Years passed, the headlines faded, the lawyers stopped calling, the world moved on, as it always does. I moved too, not to escape, but to breathe. I found a small home by the lake, just far enough from town that only birds and water visited regularly. It was quiet here. I liked the silence more now, not because it meant danger, but because it belonged to me. One afternoon, as the leaves were starting to turn gold, I heard a knock at the door. Not urgent, not hesitant, just curious. When I opened it, I saw a little girl, 9, maybe 10, standing beside a woman in her early 30s. The girl had a satchel over her shoulder and a letter in her hand. The woman smiled gently. "She's come a long way to meet you." I stepped aside without asking more. The girl walked into my kitchen like she already knew where things were. Her eyes scanned the wooden shelves, the chipped mugs, the light over the sink. Then she handed me the letter. The handwriting hit me like a song I hadn't heard in years. Leela. I sat down, hands trembling slightly, and opened it. "Dear Eleanor, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and my girl has found her way to you. Her name is Clara. I adopted her when she was 3, after her mother, my cousin, couldn't take care of her. She's curious, stubborn, and too smart for her own good. But I've taught her what you taught me. Strength does not have to be cruel. If she ever forgets, I've told her where to go. To the woman who reminded me that silence isn't weakness, it's survival. It's memory, it's power. Show her how to hold that silence with grace. Love. Lila, I folded the letter and looked up. Clara was already curled up on the old rocking chair, watching me with wide eyes. You knew my mom? She asked. I did. She said you were the strongest person she ever met. I smiled faintly. She was the strongest person I ever met. She fiddled with a frayed thread on her sleeve. Did you teach her how to fight without fists? No, I said, pouring her a glass of water. I just showed her what happens when a woman remembers everything. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty. Then she asked, Do you regret it? Not forgiving your family? I turned my gaze to the lake, now rippling in the wind. No, I said. Forgiveness is something good people decide for themselves. But silence? I turned back to her. Silence is what makes bad people afraid, because it means we're still watching, still remembering, still here. She nodded, as if filing that sentence away somewhere deep. As the sun dipped below the trees, I stood and held out my hand. Come on, I said. Where? To the fire. There's a story we haven't written yet. She took my hand, small, warm, sure, and followed me, and as the door closed behind us, 2 generations, one scarred, one just beginning, sat beside the fire and started again. No cameras, no noise, just healing. __, some stories end in noise, others in silence. But the most powerful stories end in remembrance. Thank you for listening to mine. If this story touched you, if you know someone who's ever been dismissed, mistreated, or simply forgotten, share this with them. Let them know wisdom never fades and revenge has no expiration date. For more true stories from women who were underestimated, betrayed, and still stood tall, subscribe to Grandma True Stories, because when grandmas speak, the world finally listens.